Director at EE Business Intelligence. Chris, always good to speak to you. So Sikonati Manchanja says the explosion at Medupi will not affect load shedding, at least they don't expect. Can we take that to the bank and cash it?
Definitely not. You know, one should never make promises about no load shedding. You remember the promise by the president, you know, in the December period a year ago, he promised that there would be no load shedding, and there was. The point is, nobody can say with any certainty that there will be no load shedding. What one can say for sure is that when you lose 1 or 2 units at Medupi, the probability of load shedding increases. The risk of load shedding increases because less generation is available to meet demand. Now, this 1 unit that has been taken out of service because of the explosion is going to be out of service for about a year at least. So over the next period, one could certainly say that there is an increased risk of load shedding because 720 megawatts has been taken out of service for an extended period.
So a year possibly to repair. Is that a conservative estimate?
Yeah, it is an estimate assuming that they take Unit 6 from Kusile and replace and use that to replace the damaged generator at Medupi. If one had to wait for a new generator to be manufactured and shipped to South Africa and then installed and erected in South Africa and finally commissioned, it could take even longer.
Put in context, Chris, for those of us who aren't familiar with these electricity measurements and how each plant generates what amount, if this element at Unit 4 Medupi had not been lost, how much power would it be able to give us?
Yeah, look, it's hard to contextualize it, except perhaps in the context of a city. Like a city of Cape Town, the whole city would use a few thousand megawatts. So 720 megawatts is maybe a third of the city the size of Cape Town. So it is significant. But you cannot just say that because you've lost that 720, there will be load shedding on a certain day, because it all depends on supply and demand. In winter, when demand is high, you might be closer to the edge. At times when there are several other failures of generators, the failure of one generator might be enough to push one over the edge. What one can say for sure is that every time you lose a generator, the risk of load shedding increases somewhat.
So, coming into our conversation, I was just detailing the fact that Eskom has now suspended some of the workers at the plant. You've got what it's termed, it says, air was introduced into the generator while it still had sufficient levels of hydrogen. Does this sound like possibly negligence or something deliberate?
Well, I'm loath to think that it is deliberate, and I'm always reminded that conspiracies are very complicated things, especially in an environment where there's a lot of people involved. And I really don't see this at this point in time. I don't see any evidence that one can think that this is some kind of sabotage. It is far more likely to be inadequate training and preparation, inadequate competence, inadequate experience, not following the right procedures for one reason or another, or even just human failure. There are many much simpler reasons for these things to happen than complicated conspiracies. The way the process works is hydrogen is used in a generator for cooling purposes. And before you open a generator, you need to purge that hydrogen through the introduction of an inert gas, which is generally carbon dioxide, into the generator and to actually push out the hydrogen. Only then do you do a further purge with air to push out the carbon dioxide and get air into the generator. And only then do you open the generator. The point is, if you were to put in air into the generator to do this purging of the hydrogen, you would have a mixture of air and hydrogen, which is an explosive mix. And any form of ignition could ignite that and cause massive damage, which actually appears to be what has happened in this case. So for some reason, it looks like air was introduced into the generator before the hydrogen was purged fully, and this resulted in the explosion. Now, the investigation is underway, and it would be premature to just jump to conclusions. But the preliminary investigation, according to Eskom, shows some not following correct procedures. And in fact, now they have said they have suspended certain supervisory personnel that are responsible for overseeing these procedures while the investigation, the detailed investigation, is underway.
And Eskom, as you say, has spoken quite a bit since Sunday night when this explosion happened. Are we any clearer, do you think, between Sunday and now Tuesday on the extent of damage?
Well, I've been told by Eskom that this generator is destroyed. It cannot be repaired. It has to be replaced. The question now is how to replace it. As I say, the one option is to replace it with a generator from Unit 6 at Kusile. Remember, Unit 6 is the last unit at Kusile and hasn't yet been commissioned. So they could take this from Kusile to Medupi. It is a huge task. I don't want you to think that it's a simple matter of taking a generator from one side, putting in another, and A for away. No, it's a complex task to do this and will take significant time. The other option is to order a new generator. These are bespoke generators, custom built and designed. They're not sitting on the shelf. They designed specifically for this application. They are large generators, 800 megawatts. So that will take significant time to manufacture, ship, and install in South Africa.
Chris Yelland, great to speak to you about this explosion at Medupi. Eskom now having announced the suspension of some of its workers in relation to that. Chris, thank you as always.